I started doing the role actually back in '74 for an arena version. It started me in the world of theater. Around 1986, I started doing the show as a theater performance in in regional theaters, and then I did a tour in '89, and I have to say, obviously the gymnastic background and flipping and flying and standing on your hands is very childlike, very boyish, and that's been a natural part of my life. I think over the years, after 3,000 times of doing it, I think the most exciting thing is that for 8 shows a week, I get to go back and be a kid. And there really is something to finding that inner child and being able to play and be mischievous and be adventuresome and take risks, and it has changed my life in many ways, and then to see the effect it has on kids, and not only kids but the parents of these children who have seen it in the past, who have their own memories, and they're bringing and living the show through their children's eyes. It's been the biggest blessing and the greatest show I could possibly do, and it has evolved over the years, and I think probably what I've found most is that you become more, you're not playing at being the character, you become the character, and that's probably the best therapy ever, but more than that, it's just been an unbelievable experience and adventure.
It's not a bad character to become because it's just fantasy, ultimately, you know what I mean?
It is, and it really does make us go back, and children are so resilient, they're so passionate about what's possible in their life, and they do believe that anything is possible. I see them every time I go out at the stage door, or when I go out and sign, their posters or whatever it is, and they inspire me because they do believe that no matter what the challenge or the obstacle, no matter how grand the dream is, that they're going to do it and they're going to make it happen, and that's really wonderful to remember as an adult.
Very cool. And that you kind of touched on it a little bit, but that's what's so neat is that I could go watch it with my niece who has no idea who Peter Pan is.
Yeah.
And remember it from my childhood, and my mom can remember it.
And it's so a memory-making moment, and what's so different now is that kids are so used to being on computers, and to see something live, they're kind of like on the edge of their seat, and when Peter flies over them, or I have a lot of parents say, I never thought my child would pay attention like this, and they are mesmerized, and it's not a common thing to go to the theater, and for many it's their first time in the theater, so it's just, I'm grateful to have the ability and be the vessel for this great story that has gone on for over 100 years.
And sometimes kids associate, they're old enough to understand anyway, theater with boring or whatever. So this changes the arts a little bit in their minds too.
You know what? I've yet to find a child. I mean, I never get that it is not something that they are just on the edge of their seat. And yes, I'm doing the show, so it sounds funny coming from me, but I see it. When I fly over them and they, their mouths are open, hopefully with not fairy dust getting into it, but it's really exciting for them. They are, even in the quiet moments, in the scene work, and not just the flying or the sword fighting, they are just, they're part of it. They've become part of the energy of what's going on stage.
And how true is the theater version to the fairy tale that we all know from the movie?
It's not the Disney version. It is the James Barrie version. It's the book version. So it's a much more classic, fairy tale that resonates, as I said, with adults and children. But there's a lot of heart to it, a lot of depth. There's some pathos to it, some darkness to it. And I think because of the time it was written, and the life was more difficult for many, and especially with the children and the mortality rate. So there's a little bit of both, and there's a sense of joy and adventure and wonder, and there's also this kind of darker side of longing and not wanting to grow up, and so I find it to be like almost a play with music.
And how large is your cast?
We have about 40 people. Yeah.
Big cast.
Yeah.
And okay, let's go back to your background a little bit. I know it's in gymnastics. You're Gymnastics Hall of Fame. That was your life for a really long time.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit and how it's helped with this performance.
Well, I competed in 2 Olympics, and gymnastics, you eat, sleep, dream, breathe the sport. You're in the gym 6 to 8 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week, and it was a part of my life for a relatively short period of time, but incredibly intense. And at 15, I went to my first Olympics, at 19, my second, and then you retire. And you go, okay, now what am I going to do? And I have to say that the training for gymnastics is not unlike what you would do to train for almost anything else. If you work at something, you get better. If you have a passion for it, then you're going to probably work harder at that. And while the skills are different, you know, your voice is an involuntary muscle, but if you practice every day and you're a bit obsessive like I was, all of a sudden you see an improvement, and then you get better, and then you have more confidence. And the same with the acting. The hardest part actually was the acting, I think, because I was so used to being so emotionally controlled through gymnastics and having to compete at that world and Olympic level, that I, you know, to be able to open up emotionally and to play with somebody else and get into the shoes of another person, that was probably the biggest challenge.
It's not every day that, especially with a gymnastics career, people end up coaching or something like that. You get to actually use it
right
later, so that's got to be nice.
Well, it's been great. I mean, when I'm flying, and we have a new harness that I wear that allows me to kind of flip and spin and turn in different ways I couldn't in the last tour. And people will always laugh because I'll always be doing something strange, like flying upside down like a bat or spinning, and they go, you know, doesn't that make you dizzy? And I want to go, you know what, I am so safe up here compared to having a 4-inch balance beam that I'm flipping on and landing really hard on. And so it's like you have this joy of actually moving and flipping and spinning without the worry of having that you're going to hit the ground. And
did you always sing? I read that you actually trained really hard. So was singing something that you had to work at, or was it also something that you were naturally talented at?
I think singing, it's interesting. A lot of people think you either sing or you don't sing. And like I said, it's like any other muscle in your body. Everybody has their own potential. But you get the right teachers and you train, and all of a sudden one day you're belting out, you know, a big note, or you're singing a song completely through, and you have the right breath control, and yes, you still get nervous and you go, okay, can I do this? And but after over 30 years of doing it, it's as second nature to me as the gymnastics was when I did it.
Anything else you want to say about the production itself?
I think that, you know, I would just like to acknowledge just the, you know, the sets, the costumes, the designs are beautiful. And Brent Barrett, who is our Captain Hook, we worked together doing Annie Get Your Gun 20 years ago. And he's an incredible Captain Hook. He did Chicago, Phantom of the Opera. He was in Kiss Me Kate, and it's just nice to be back with him doing, you know, a role many years later. There's a great chemistry, even though we're fighting each other all the time as Captain Hook. But just a great cast. I adore them, and they're hardworking, and they give 1,000% every show, and same with the crew. So it's a nice family atmosphere that we have going on here.
And you've performed this in Nashville before?
Yes. Yes, with some of our children in that show grew up on us, so we got some new. But yeah, so it's nice to be back in Nashville. We've already partied a little bit and had a great time, so love it.
How many set changes are there? Is there?
Well, there's probably we have the nursery, which is beautiful. John Iacovelli is our set designer, and it's very you know, English, you know, turn of the century style. We have Marooner's Rock, which is part of Neverland. It's kind of the dark cave where Captain Hook, you know, gets the best of Peter Pan for a minute. We have the Home Underground, where, if you can imagine being a child and always wanting to build caves and castles, and you have all the Lost Boys and the trees on top, and the, you know, it's like your own special tent underground, which is fun. And then you have the big ship, the pirate ship, which is so we have lots of different, and of course Neverland itself, which is beautiful.